Okay, well, greetings everyone at Christmas time. This is December 2nd, 2025. Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy Advent. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. We're here in the chapel of the Union Church of Seaside Park, and I have some guests with me today that I'm going to introduce you to, and we're going to get to know them a little bit because they have an amazing story of God's grace and power, and you're going to want to hear this. And I think it's going to be an encouragement to everyone, but most importantly, for those who are struggling right now with difficult situations, especially illnesses, it's our prayer that this gives you hope during the season of hope. And that's why we're recording this for you. So I'm going to step away now. You won't have to see me anymore. And I'm going to introduce you to Justin and Erin Leach. I'm pronouncing it right.
That's correct.
And let's start off by just telling us, just get a little bit about yourselves. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up? That type of thing.
Sure. So my name is Justin Leach. I was born in Long Branch, New Jersey. I'm a shore boy through and through. As we say, we have a little saying between each other. We have sand in our hair and salt in our veins forever. We kind of grew up together on different sides of the Toms River. I was on the Toms River side. She was on the Beechwood side. I lived in the Silverton section, was a baseball player, graduated from Toms River High School South in 1996.
Yay, South.
Yeah, Indians, go Indians.
Yep.
And then from there, I took my baseball career to Monmouth University, where I got to play some D1 ball until I got hurt. I had to replace the passion of baseball in my life with something in a professional career because the professional baseball thing went away after I tore my arm. So I settled into real estate, and I've been in real estate for the last 23 years. And the feeling of representing a family for generations in making that move from home to home, such a big occurrence in everybody's life. I say it's one of the most stressful times of your life is to purchase a new home. Is that juice for me? I love it. I love to be able to be there and be their bodyguard through the process. And Ari, you want to talk a little bit about your side and where you came up?
I grew up in Beechwood. My family is one of the families that came to Beechwood through you subscribe to the newspaper and you get a lot in Beechwood. And my family bought about 3 streets worth. My grandfather started Hometown Dairy, and my grandmother and my aunt did Fugazi Travel.
My uncle worked for Hometown Dairy years ago. There you go.
See?
Yep.
I think everyone's uncle worked for Hometown Dairy. And so we, are well known in the community. Justin and I lived across the river. Our grandparents had businesses on the same street. We met playing in the puddles.
Yeah, so you mind if I?
No, jump in.
So the crazy part is, after her and I had met years later, in our late 40s, I realized she was the little girl my grandparents owned a company called Penn Metro, which was right across the street from Hometown Dairy on Gladney in Bayville. And I used to go there as a 9-year-old boy, 7, 8, 9 years old, and help them. They provided all the toiletries for all the jails and prisons on the East Coast. So I would stuff bags with little toothpaste, razors, toothbrush, and I'd get bored of that pretty quick. And at the time, it was on a dirt road, and there was all potholes that would fill with water. And in all of those potholes were tadpoles. So I would be out there with this little girl that was from the other place at the Hometown Dairy, and we'd be running around looking for tadpoles and capturing them in cups.
That's cool.
She became my wife.
Yeah.
Long and short story of it.
Yeah, pretty crazy story, but we can get into more of that later.
Yeah. And so you guys got some kids between you, or what's the story on that?
Yeah, we got a lot of kids.
Not between us, but we have a lot.
Yeah.
I came. It's kind of a Brady Bunch situation.
Yep. We have the same thing.
Yeah, I have an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 4-year-old, and she has a 15, 21, 25, and 30-year-old. And then we have 7 grandchildren with an 8th on the way.
Oh, that's awesome. God bless you.
Yeah.
That's great. You got me beat.
Yeah.
We have 6 children between us, mine, yours, and ours. And then we have 9 grandchildren, soon to have 10 in a couple weeks. And we have 4 great-grandchildren. So,
Wow.
yeah, so we know what it's like having the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also know what it's like not to have enough money.
Yeah.
You got that many kids, you never have enough money, right?
There's no such thing. There's
Yeah.
no such thing, that's for sure.
So, Justin, start us off in your miraculous story with how did your health start to unravel for you?
Sure. So I'll go back to really like 2020, 2021 is really when everything began. During COVID, I was in a situation where I suddenly had to take care of my mother, who was, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And while their house was being lifted, years after Sandy, they finally got the grant money, it was being lifted, my father passed away of a heart attack in a rental that they were staying in. So she had to move back into that home without my father, where they built the house pretty much, and they were married for 40 years, and she was devastated. And it just so happened to coincide with a time period where I had a separation in my life with my children's mother, and I had to take care of my own mom now. And that was before she was diagnosed. Then she got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So the challenges that I was facing were heavy. I had a 1- and 2-year-old and my mother to care for, as well as getting the house finished. So the stress started to mount at that point. To fast forward, not get into too much personal detail, there were a lot of things that happened that caused me to start drinking. I was self-medicating. The stress and the anxiety was very difficult. I ended up having a 3rd child with my fiance at the time, and having a newborn baby, my mother, 2 other children, the house, it all, and then I was also running a career where I was coaching and mentoring 35 people at one time. So my phone was nonstop. So the stress just kept mounting. And, my drinking was kind of covert. Nobody knew. I was drinking vodka, quietly. And not, like I said, it wasn't anything anybody knew about. It wasn't anything that I put out there. But it was basically to self-medicate, to go to sleep, to numb the pain, the anxiety, the stress. And before I knew it, I found myself becoming in the grips of the devil, so is how I say it. Because then the drinking turned into not something to do to quell the anxiety, but it was something I had to do. Because if I didn't, my hands started to shake. And the anxiety and all the stress that I was under was increased immensely because of the feeling of withdrawals from the alcohol, because my body became dependent on it. Mentally, I didn't think I was, but my body was telling me otherwise. So it got to a point where I was very, very uncomfortable with that concept. So that had gone on for about a year. And then on July 4th, 2024, I woke up one day and I said to my wife, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not drinking anymore. I'm not touching another drop. This is it. And I had a dream the night before where the Lord had come to me and said, you're going to lose your children, you're going to lose your life, you're going to lose everything. It was very loud, it was very clear, it was unlike anything I ever felt before. And I woke up that next day where my body just knew it was done. I had, prior to that, and I'm not proud to admit it, but I had gone through everything that a typical alcoholic would go through. I would be at the liquor store at 9 a.m. when they opened, and I'd take my shooters just to stop the shakes, and then, go about my day. And, I guess in my head, I thought I was doing it pretty successfully, spacing it out, so I thought, and all the excuses I gave myself. But by the time that I quit, I had not been diagnosed with anything yet at that point. Wow. I had no idea. And I quit cold turkey, and I'll tell you that was a very difficult experience. I almost died from the withdrawal process. And Erin can tell you, the convulsing, the shakes, the vomiting, to the point where I threw up so hard that 7 days after I quit drinking, I found out I tore a hole in my stomach from the vomiting. because I went to use the bathroom in the morning on July 11th, 2024, and as I was exiting the restroom, I realized that I had a sudden urge to vomit. So I turned to my sink and I just threw up, and it was about a quart of blood, pure blood, just filled my sink, and it terrified me. I'd never seen anything like that, and I knew something at that moment was very wrong. I came out and I said, "Hon, we got to go to the hospital now." And she saw that, and sure enough, we get to the hospital. I went in at a 14 hemoglobin, which is normal for a man. Okay, that level 14 is normal. They had to figure out where the bleeding was coming from, why I threw up so much blood, so they had scheduled me for an endoscopy. And that was for 4 o'clock. And it was a backup. It was Jersey Shore Medical Center, and I was backed up, so we're sitting there waiting. And then while we're waiting, the doctor had mentioned, "How long have you been jaundiced and yellow?" And I was like, and Erin looked at me and she said, "Oh my God, you are." Like, I had not been until that day. And that's when I started to worry, because I knew that meant liver. So I didn't know how that tied to my stomach yet, but next thing I know, it's about 1:30, and they came barging into my room, threw me on a stretcher, and were running down the hallway with me. Now, one of the many levels of education that I've learned medically is at 12 to 14 is normal for a male of my age to be walking around hemoglobin level. If you go to 7, that's emergency transfusion. Well, the reason why they were running down the hallway with me is because mine had dropped to a 4. My stomach was spewing blood into my cavity, into my abdomen. They did an emergency endoscopy on me and found out that I had torn a hole in my stomach called a Malweiss tear. And I had to get 8 bags of blood transfused into me immediately, and really was on the doorstep. As my doctor put it, I had 2 feet in the grave while I was there. And this is going back to July of 2024. So that started the journey. That's when I was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver. Oh. And at that stage, he wanted to see if through diet and stopping drinking, my liver would regenerate itself. And it turns out that in the process, after a certain amount of time, there should have been signs of regeneration, but there weren't. So I ended up going to a rheumatologist as a recommendation for my gastro, and found out that I had an autoimmune disease that was also attacking my liver for years before this even happened, so I didn't know about it. It was a biliary cirrhosis, non-alcoholic biliary cirrhosis, where my immune system was attacking my bile ducts, which in process did not allow my liver to regenerate like a normal liver would. So when I drank heavily for that year, it fast-forwarded the entire process. They said if I didn't drink, then I would have gotten into liver failure probably in my 60s. It's a slow-moving disease and very hard to detect until it gets advanced to the point where, you need a transplant, which at that age, I certainly would have made it through what I just went through. But so now I'm dealing with this. So then he recommends me to go onto the transplant protocol and the list. So on December 16th of 2024, I have a meeting with a doctor that he recommended for the transplant. I get enrolled into the top liver transplant organization and hospital at Rutgers University up in Newark. While I'm there, in order to get on a transplant list, you have to go through all the most terrifying tests possible. They got to make sure you got nothing going wrong anywhere else in your body and you're healthy enough to receive a transplant and go through the surgery. So I got screened for every type of cancer. So if you ever had any, and me, you feel pains and you have certain situations where you're like, what is that? But I'm pretty stubborn. Never really went to the doctor because I was very healthy up until that point. But they scan you for every type of cancer. So every test result coming back, I was tapping, hoping I had nothing else going on.
Sure.
Whether it be diabetes or an infection or cancer or anything of that sort would halt me from getting the transplant, which was a death sentence. because by the time I got enrolled into Rutgers University, I was in end-stage liver failure. My time on this planet was limited. And I was being kept alive by medication at that point. So I went from being very healthy to being given medication to stay alive. During that process, your body retains fluid in your legs and in your stomach. Your legs is called edema, and your stomach is called ascites. So the ascites fluid in my stomach ended up getting infected 4 times, to the point where my blood went septic all 4 times, 3 of which was with the strep virus. And because it got to the point where it infected my blood, the virus settled in all 4 chambers of my heart. And it grows what's called, they call it vegetation, where the bacteria of the virus grows, whatever it grows, to the point where it stopped my valves from working. So at this point at Rutgers University, what was going to be a relatively straightforward liver transplant turned into, now I have a heart issue. Now, I had already gone through the heart clearance from them on May, right?
April 30th.
April 30th. And this was what, July? Following July, I got diagnosed with heart disease. I was in congestive heart failure. And they said the only way it could happen that fast is if I had an infection that settled in my valves and blew them out. So I went to Brick Hospital first. Brick Hospital said that they thought it was my aortic valve. They couldn't do anything for me. They transferred me to Rutgers because that was my hospital that I was already enrolled in for the transplant. It started on July 5th. I was making breakfast for my kids, felt a pain in my back, went back, told her. She's like, let me take your temperature. I was at 98.
This is July 5th of this year.
Of this year.
Of, yeah, 2025.
Of 2025.
Right, just a few months ago.
I was making breakfast for my kids, celebrating my 1-year anniversary of sobriety. Actually, it was on July 4th. And July 5th, I had my children. I was making them French toast. Felt something strange in my back. It was a pain, like cramping almost. Went back to my wife. She was in bed, and she was my fiance at the time. And I said, hon, I don't feel right. My temperature was 98, and about 30 minutes later, it went to 104.7. I was shivering to the point of no control. I had, 2 sweatshirts on?
Heating blanket.
A heating blanket, 2 comforters, and I couldn't stop shivering. So obviously called 911. They came in, they took me out on a stretcher in front of my kids. And little did I know I wouldn't see outside air, a shower, or my family again for the next 5 months. So I embarked on a journey of terror and despair for the next 5 months, because I went into Brick Hospital. They said it was my aortic valve. Then I went to Rutgers University Hospital. They said it was my aortic and tricuspid valve, and they couldn't do anything for me, and then I had a high probability of not surviving this. I was on a floor where people typically often don't leave alive, unfortunately. So there was a lot of prayer that went on. Erin and I prayed every day, and that's when things got really serious, and people started to wonder where I was, because I wasn't telling anybody any of this. And that's when I started to get these prayer groups, and a lot of people praying for me and sending me prayer messages, and I was praying myself a great deal. And you always think in that situation, I was always thinking in that situation, there's no way I can get more bad news. Well, little did I know there was plenty more to come. So then when they told me there was nothing they could do, I could no longer be transplanted there, because I had been out of work now at that point for a year, and had no income, and was really dealing with the turmoils, the trials and tribulations of the illness that I had. I was able to get on Medicaid. Thank God, literally, because I don't know, the cost of all of this would have been astronomical if I was doing it on my own privately. So the crazy part is the Medicaid is New Jersey, and the only hospital rated in the state of New Jersey to do anything for me told me they couldn't do anything, and my insurance doesn't cover anything in the state. So there was a moment where I was like, uh-oh, is this it? And then she found in the insurance deck page that there is a stipulation that states if you exhaust all options in your home state, you can go to a neighboring state, which opened the door to get me into Columbia University, where I was told I was going to see the best of the best doctors. And you want to talk a little bit about what that transition was like? Just what we went through, because the two different perspectives. Me laying there in the bed, I'm not told a lot,
Yeah.
and then she gets to see a lot and a lot of the process, and she's out there talking with the nurses.
You became his patient advocate, right?
Oh, she was, yeah.
Yeah.
You kept him alive, really.
Oh, definitely, no doubt.
Yeah.
Well, my faith, I wouldn't allow, he was like, this is really bad. And the doctor, so you'd get this random young doctor who comes in and says, you're very sick. And I'm like, don't say that, because if you give up, we would have given up at Jersey Shore when he was, his hemoglobin was a 4, blood's coming out from God knows where, and we couldn't stop it. And the doctor's like, nothing I can do for you. We just kept pressing forward and saying, no, we didn't go through all this. And when he says, transplant protocol at Rutgers University, we went through medical school based on what they taught us, educated us on. We could write a book on it, and we should, because people need help to understand, A, don't drink alcohol. It's like drink gasoline from a gas pump. It's destroying your body every time you take a sip. B, salt and sugar. They're your enemies, and it's destroying your body from the inside. So we're educated, and we're also trying to cling on to each other. We're terrified. What do you mean he's not coming home? If you stay 1 week in the hospital, we stayed 24-hour stint in a chair in the hallway of Jersey Shore, heads up against the computer monitors with this blaring whistles, and It
was a computer monitor that monitors all the people's vitals.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing well at all. And they had my head right next to it. So every person where their alarm went off was right in my ear.
Yeah.
For an entire day.
And so,
It's horrible.
yeah, the transplant protocol is not anything to be taken lightly. So now we get to the end of that, and what do you mean? They're telling us after 6 straight months of every other day going to Newark, we're from down here. We don't drive into Newark and New York and these, this is foreign to us, but it's his life on the line. So we're like, well, we'll do whatever we have to do. Thank God we live near here. So, and I'm on my phone calling my mom, and she's like, we're going to pray. And I'm like, all right. She's like, Erin, he's not going to die. And my mom's faith has been that person in my angel in the outfield, always saying, nope, don't listen to that. Don't listen to the reports. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing the right thing. Justin's going to get the greatest doctors, whatever. He's very educated, tenacious. He's not going to just take no for an answer either. So the two of us together are a force. So we're like, no. We question doctors, and they're looking at us like, who are you to question us? Well, because I said to the one of them, and so did he after this, I'm someone's father. I'm someone's husband. I'm someone's son. I'm someone's friend. I'm not just Justin Leach in room 13. I'm a person, and I have to live this. So don't tell me there's nothing else we can do. What would you do if it was your brother, your son? Go back into that boardroom of 60 doctors all saying, no, we won't want to take the risk. What do we do now? His heart failed. Within 30 days, he was in congestive heart failure from a perfectly good heart to blown out 4 valves. And they're telling us we can't risk it because your liver is too sick, you won't survive. So we're like, okay, next, who can help us? So we just kept making phone calls. Justin called his insurance company. She made 1 phone call. You're going to Columbia. We thought, we were cheering. Thank God someone's willing to take him on.
And at that point, Rutgers was, they were telling me, this is the best hospital for you, they're the best surgeons, everything's going to work out, you'll be just fine. And I got to Columbia.
Well, let me interject. Rutgers was our family.
Yeah.
That was they loved us.
Oh, and that's also where we got married.
Yeah. The chapel.
Yeah.
At Rutgers University.
When
the chaplain was the sweetest guy, and he married us, and it was beautiful, and we couldn't have planned it right?
When we
Better.
found out that this could be, you know, it was very much up in the air. At that point, they were giving it 50-50 that I would live or die. You know, I said, let's get married. I said, I don't want to, God forbid things were to go to the worst way. I don't want you to have me as a fiance. I want to be your husband. And she loved that. I had already set it up with the chaplain, so I was hoping she was okay with that. But I said, we'll have the ceremony and everything when I survive this. I said, but so it was just her and I, some people from the hospital, and we got married at Rutgers the day that I found out that they had a room for me at Columbia. So I had set up the wedding, and I was still waiting for a bed. Now, that's one of the most desperate times when you're sitting there and there's such a sense of urgency to get somewhere, to have somebody tell you that they can even try, and you can't get in because there's no beds. So I'm just laying there, and when you fall into that, you fall into this netherworld as far as the medical world goes, where you're no longer their patient and you're just waiting for a bed in another hospital, so all the attention kind of falls off. So I had to fight and demand for my vitals to be checked at times, for medication, for, you know, certain things, because, like I said, you fall into this strange place where, I don't want to say they didn't care anymore, but you're not at the top of priority because, you know, they were expecting me to be transferred out every day. Well, it took 2 weeks. And it turns out the day we were getting married, the head nurse for the floor came in and said, I have your wedding present. And I was like, what? You don't have to get us anything. Thinking, you know, it was an actual present. She says, we got your room at Columbia. You're going. Now, they had built them up as the best, foremost heart-related surgery hospital on the planet. So I thought this was it. This was my savior. Well, lo and behold, I get to Columbia. My health worsens. I get put from the heart liver floor to the intensive care unit inside of the intensive care unit. So they come to me, and now they engineered 2 bullet holes in my neck. That's what they called them, because they're essentially the same thing as a bullet hole, to put what's called a swan catheter in. I had 26 tubes, all representing a different medication, going into my carotid artery in my neck, keeping me alive. And then I had another 9 tubes that were also in my heart that were checking, because I had never known there's 2 different types of blood pressures. There's your cuff blood pressure, there's your internal heart pressure. My cuff was good, but my internal heart was saying that I was going to die. I could die any minute. It was at such a high pressure that I could have had a massive heart attack at any given second. So finding that out, it's just another thing that weighs on your mind, to the point where basically for 5 months I was unable to sleep because I was afraid I was not going to wake up. And that's very difficult. Not able to shower. All of my personal freedoms were gone. It's I liken it to the military and prison. Very similar in the way that, you know, the military breaks you down and prepare you for war. This system breaks you down while you're at war. So, you know, it's very difficult, very challenging. As I'm at war trying to maintain life within my body, and through prayer, my body's failing. There's, you know, you're seeing a different doctor every week. And when you're held captive for 5.5 months in one spot and you're going through all these different rotations, the rotations are not always clean. They don't always have all the information. I've had doctors try to give me medications that they shouldn't have. I had nurses that were not briefed on what my situation was and almost ended me by doing the wrong thing. And that's where you have to pay attention and ask questions and really advocate for yourself. And it scares me what I've learned, seeing what some other people, elderly, that can't speak for themselves, can't advocate for themselves, and they just do whatever they're being given, they think they should be getting. Well, I stopped, and I stopped a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so did she. She was my pit bull. She would monitor, because there were times with liver failure, end-stage liver failure, and this is what I ran into at Columbia. This is where my situation got worse. My liver was at such a point of failure that any medication that they were giving me had toxins involved in it that normally your liver can filter out. My liver could not. So that breeds a bacteria whose waste product is ammonia. The ammonia went in my bloodstream and goes straight to your brain, and you get what's called encephalitis. And I went into encephalitic shock about 11 times, all of which could have put me into a coma. And a good or acceptable rate of ammonia in the bloodstream is around 30, 40. I was at 190, catastrophic. And what the one doctor told you, I was like minutes away from a coma, right? A coma, yeah, like
It
literally.
puts you in a coma, but before it puts you in a coma, it puts you in a complete stupor. You don't know what year it is.
I didn't know my
your
name.
You don't know that
I didn't know what year I was
children.
born. I didn't know where I was. I was
are-
calling her my mother. I denied that I even had children. I know, apparently. This is all, I don't remember any of this. Zero recollection.
He's telling me it's 1946.
So this is all while I'm
It's
at.
terrifying.
Yeah.
And he was mentally unaware. Like, he doesn't have any recollection of this happening to him, but it happened so many times. And the doctors are pumping him full of medication that's causing it.
Yeah.
So 30 days of that, and then he's in
And I hit
Colombia.
rock bottom, like urinating in the bed, defecating in the bed.
It was
I had no
humbling.
control over anything. I couldn't get up. I had, like I said, the tubes in my neck prevented me from I couldn't roll over. I had to stay in one position for about a month and a half. And the only time I could move is if I had a team of multiple nurses to get me up. One had to monitor the tree of life, I call it. You know, it had all the different pumps for all the different medications that you walk with to go anywhere. When I finally got strong enough to use the bathroom myself and I didn't have to, utilize the bedpan or the contraptions that they attach to you so you can urinate. And it was one doctor there that after they told me there was nothing they could do at Columbia, they got into an argument in front of me. The liver team and the heart team got into an argument where the heart team said we can do a non-open heart procedure where they go in through the groin and repair the valve that they thought, the two valves that they thought was an issue. The liver team turned around and said, if you do that, he's going to die anyway because we won't take the liver out. We won't have time because he will have to recover from your surgery. The risk of infection for doing both at the same time, we can't do it. It won't be approved by insurance. And the only way we will take his liver out is if you do a whole heart transplant.
Oh.
Well, guess what? Columbia doesn't do whole heart transplants. They only do valves. So now I'm thinking I'm at the last place. This is Columbia, New York City, Manhattan. I see their commercials at home all the time. I thought this was the best thing ever, and they told me that I was going to die, and I had two choices. One, to ride it out there in a hospital with medication, hospice situation, and keeping me comfortable, or go home and spend time with my children, because at that point I had stopped allowing my kids to come visit me, just because I didn't want them to see me with all the tubes in my neck, and I was yellow, and there were days I was going so in and out of encephalitis that I just didn't want them to remember me that way.
Yeah, there was times.
So
where
I would talk to them on the phone when I could, when I was good, but there were times where, like the one day actually the last day that I made the decision to just cut off completely them coming to visit me was, they were supposed to come there that day, and that was one of my worst days ever. I went into encephalitic shock, and it was terrible. I fell on the floor. I didn't know where I was or who I was, belligerent. Like all these things happen to you that you have no control over, zero. So one of the doctors on the liver team said, let me make one phone call for you. And her and I held hands. We prayed a lot. We did that a lot, but we did that for this. And on whatever she was going to come back and say. Now, at Columbia, a board of 40 surgeons, all heart-related, denied me. They said no. They said, you can't do this. Unfortunately, sometimes you're just so sick that there's nothing you can do. And needing two organs, which would mean the surgery was almost a guaranteed failure, but finding two organs from the same donor, so it was the same DNA and everything, and blood type and size became a very big thing. Because liver, you can kind of finagle and do extensions on some of the veins and arteries and ducts, but with a heart, it's got to line up. Like it's got to make sense. Can't be too big, can't be too small to fit the space. So all of those factors being factored in was a very grim prognosis of survival, because now I'm at the point where they said that I didn't have much more than a week or two of life left, that before the medication was going to stop keeping me alive. So that was
September 12th.
yeah. So September 12th is when I got transferred. We got the okay for NYU Langone. They reviewed my process. They said, we'll bring him in and evaluate him. We can't make any promises, but we do full heart transplants, and we've done a heart and liver transplant at the same time before. So I get transferred there. Now I'm my third hospital in 2 months, and after about 22 different doctors on different teams essentially telling me that I was not going to make it. And now I get to NYU Langone, and I'm researching them on my phone every chance I get. And I was really getting excited because they are the preeminent hospital in the world. Like really, when it comes to this type of stuff, they are the best of the best. And it looked like it. When I got there, because I had been in some pretty rough accommodations. You know, Newark Hospital, Rutgers was very old. Doctors were great, but the facilities, not so much. Food, even worse. That was the prison reference before. Yeah. And Columbia was nice at first, but then when they moved me into the ICU, it was very, very horrible conditions and quarters to try and stay alive in. I had to use the bathroom and a toilet that folded out from a sink. And
It was horrendous.
it was not good. Not
It was
good.
prison. It was medical prison.
So when they packed me up and transferred me to NYU Langone, at that stage I was getting a very good sense just by reading people's faces and looking in people's eyes on what they felt was going to be my situation. And I knew that everybody thought that I was going to pass. Mm-hmm. And that, this was a Hail Mary attempt to give me respect, to try. And I quite frankly at times felt like they just didn't want me to pass there. And, they kept talking about statistics. And I said to them, I said, listen, I understand there's statistics. I said, but I'm not like everybody else. So you give me something to fight, I will fight it. Okay? And I have been through other things in my life where I was hit by, I was in a car accident where I was hit on the driver's side door at 55 miles an hour with no seatbelt on. My car flipped 14 times, ended up upside down. I got cut out by the jaws of life, airlifted to the hospital, and I was released from the hospital in 2 hours. So I knew my body had resilience. I said, I can't just go home and give up. So they transferred me to NYU Langone, and I'm excited for that, and I'm ready to have them tell me that there was a way out. And they told me it should take about a week. 2 weeks go by, I hear nothing yet from them after all these tests. And the tests are brutal. It's not just like they take some blood and that's it. Like I had to go to the cath lab several times, the catheterization lab, where they go into my arteries, into my heart, and stop my heart, and then have to start it back up with medication. They stop it with medication, start it back up. So I go through the entire feeling of a heart attack 3 times. And then they bring it back just to test the pressures and try and get everything right. And that wears away at your will to live. It really does. It's just very, very difficult. And I had to find the strength and the belief to stay on. And after 2 weeks of being there saying, come on, I need some answers, the head of the heart surgery team comes in and says, I'm sorry to give you this information, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's anything anybody can do. And he gave me, again, the option. He said, it could be 3 days or it could be 3 months that you could live. He said, if I were to guess right now, because I said to him, I said, Doc, just shoot to me straight. Don't give me BS. Yeah. I want to know the reality. And he said, you might have a month or 2. And that was a kick in the stomach. Now I'm by myself at that point. She's not there. I had nobody there. I was completely by myself. And the thought of never seeing my children again or having to say goodbye to them or go home, because I'm telling them all the time, don't worry, Daddy's Superman. I'll take care of this. It's something I can beat. Don't worry about it. I got great doctors. So he tells me, he's like, look, you're going to die on our operating table. And he explained. Now, at that point, they thought it wasn't 2, it was 3 of my valves that were shot. So he gives me this news of despair, and, you know, he walked out of the room, and I just completely started bawling, crying.
Yeah.
And had a lot of conversations with God that day, and found the strength to call her and tell her. And after I got off the phone with her, I got a visit from the surgeon who was actually going to do the heart surgery on me to console me about the prognostication that they just gave me. And in him talking to me, now it's him and a bunch of these other doctors around him. They're always the teams. So I had a liver team, a heart team, then I had the ICU team. Mm-hmm. So I was getting visited by these teams on a regular basis. And now the heart team's in front of me, and he's standing at the end of my bed, and he's explaining to me why, you know, my situation is so dire, and the fact that the ability for my body to stay alive would require a bypass pump that would have to basically live for me and for my heart, and the transition of getting so when you get approved for an organ donorship, it's not the doctors that are doing the surgery on you that approves it. It's not the doctor that is actually doing the surgery that approves it. It's a panel of people that are national for the donorship program. And they have to approve it. And it's a very slippery slope where you have to be sick enough to be on the donor list, but healthy enough to survive the surgery. And if you have to hit this very, very small percentage point of people that you're able to get to the top of the list, but not be too sick to not be able to perform the surgery and survive it. So it was at that moment that I was talking to my heart surgeon, and he was consoling me that the doctor next to him was looking at the paperwork, and he looked up, he goes, "Doc, I made a mistake." He said he doesn't have 3 heart valves that are failing, it's all 4. Now, at first I thought that was worse news, but it turns out to be a blessing, because it was the 4 valves that catapulted me to the top of the list for the donor list for the heart. And that's a very difficult place to be, especially somebody in my condition that has both the liver and the heart situation. And because I got put to the top of the list, all of a sudden things opened up. And the doctor put his hand on my leg and he says, "I can do this, you're not gonna die." Because the biggest fear was time. I had no time left. And being that it was only 3 valves, I wasn't high enough on the list to get the heart transplant. And with the 4 valves, it kicked me up another notch, which meant that I was gonna be getting organs. They told me in about a week and a half. Well, yet again, here I am, 3 weeks go by and I got nothing. And I'm waiting for organs to keep me alive. And I'll tell you, during that time period, I had put together a playlist for my funeral, my own funeral. I had called my wife and gave her directives on how I wanted things arranged for my funeral. And, you know, she did not want to hear any of that. But I said, listen, we're at the stage now. I've had every major university hospital in New York and New Jersey tell me that I'm going to die. So we have to I'd rather be more prepared than less. And again, many sleepless nights thinking about all the time I'm going to miss with my kids and so on and so forth. And the doctor, after now I'm in this 2-week time period waiting for organs. And at that point, they told me there was a 25% chance of me fully getting through this transplant. He said, we got you at the top of the list, but I want to let you know you have a very, very slim chance of making it through this entire process because of all the things that could go wrong between removing my heart and my liver during the same surgical process, the amount of blood loss, possibility for infection, rejection, all these different things came into play, which altogether is doubled when you're dealing with 2 organs. So the mental fortitude and endurance was nothing short of a spiritual miracle that got me through that, to be honest. You know, I had many conversations with the Lord and kept me going. You got to remember, I had 4 valves that were not working, not moving any blood through my heart. So I couldn't breathe because there's a main artery that goes out the back of your heart into your lungs that brings the oxygenated blood to your lungs. I had to literally roll certain ways in my bed to get the blood to fall into that artery to get me oxygen to my lungs. If I laid too flat, I would suffocate. So this is what I'm going through during the 2 weeks, and now it's past the time that I should have even gotten the organs that they told me. And the doctor calls me on my phone in my room, and it says, listen, I had the organs to transplant you. He said, but it was from a 77-year-old gentleman, and yours is such a delicate situation, and you've been maintaining enough life numbers on your vitals to be sustainable. If you can hold out one more week, keep doing what you're doing, and give me another week. So it turns out that he had a situation where a 23-year-old male had gotten into a car accident and was on a ventilator, and the family was making a decision to pull the plug or not. And I guess he knew that. I didn't know this at the time. He didn't tell me this. He just said, give me a week, week and a half. Well, literally, it came to the end of my life. I was going into my final encephalitic shock, that the medication was no longer working to take me off, to get me out of it. I was going to die, and the organs came in. She actually recorded them being flown in on a helicopter, landing with a heart and a liver from a 23-year-old on a family that chose to save my life rather than watch their son be on a ventilator for the rest of their life. And so now I get the word that the organs are in. And now I'm like, wow, here we go, it's go time. But I was not fully conscious. I was in and out of consciousness because of the encephalitis and the pneumonia that had built on my brain. So they prepare me, they get me ready, and I'll never forget that feeling getting wheeled down the hallway to what was going to possibly be my final destination. Because the percentage is still, I mean, it was great that the organs were there. It was great that they were able to do something finally. But then the reality kept, smacking me in the face that I might not make it through this, and there's a good possibility. And then you really start to think of all the details. They're going to cut every artery, every vein that your heart's attached to keep your body running, and put another one in. It became overwhelming. I didn't think about it much until that moment going down the hallway. But so next thing I know, I'm in the surgical room. I said my goodbyes to her. That was tough because, when you have so much time, 5 months in the hospital, but then all of a sudden it's like this. And I'm saying bye to her, and this is it. Like this could be it. And I get in there, and I'm laying there, and it's a big steel room. Everything was white and steel, and it was shiny, and it was very cold. And, I have a team of a bunch of people prepping me and doing all this stuff, and I just kept praying. I kept praying over and over in my mind. And then next thing I know, I was out, and not knowing if I was going to wake up. They told me that they were starting to administer the sedation medication, and next thing I know, I'm in a hospital bed, and I didn't realize that it was done. And I started saying to her, just get me the hell out of here. I'm done. I'm done with this racket. And she comes up to me, she's like, it's done. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I was still on pain medication, obviously. I didn't know that the whole process had been done. I felt like I had, they were just delaying it again. Until I looked down, and I saw a zipper that started here and went down with 196 staples wrapping around to my hip, the upper hip bone. And I was like, whoa. I'm like, it's done? Now, they had prepped me that after the surgery I was going to be extremely sick, and that most people who get a transplant, they don't pass in the procedure, they pass after, because they have to pump you full of so many medications that shut down your immune system completely. They turn it off, because otherwise your immune system will attack the new organs that are in your body, because they recognize it's not your organs. So they'll attack it, and you die from that. Any infection, the slightest infection, would have killed me, because my immune system was so down, and there would be nothing that they could do. And I had no blood. They had to transfuse. I ended up going through through the whole process of about 35 blood transfusions, countless amounts of bags of blood being put into me. But for this procedure, I had no blood. So I was not supposed to even have the ventilator taken off for the first full week. Well, after the surgery went down, she came to me, she said, "You're a unicorn." She said that they took the ventilator 10 minutes out after my surgery. I was supposed to be in for a week. I was walking that day or the next day.
2 hours after.
2 hours after my ventilator came out, I got up and walked across my room, which is absolutely unheard of. They told me I would be there until I would be there until Christmas time at the minimum. So that's what I had told my kids and everybody. Well, day by day, the feeling of being in the hands of God and just the inexplicable nature of everybody's look on everybody's faces when they were doing my vitals, they're like, "We have no explanation for this. Like, you are really doing well. Like, really, really, really doing well." To the point where my surgery was completed on October 13th and I was discharged on October 27th. I was home before Halloween, not supposed to be home until Christmas. And that's when, the next phase came, because you don't realize that the pain meds take days to wear off. Well, I got home, and when they send you home from the hospital, they don't give you pain meds. So they wore off, and man, the bone, so my bone right here, the chest plate that protects your heart, they cut that down the middle with a Dremel saw. If you know the round little saw, they cut that completely open. They pry it open with forceps, and then they lock it in place, so my chest is open. Ribs are because of their flexibility, my chest is pried open, and then they detach every single vital bloodline and capillary, vein, artery, and then my body is heartless. I have no heart in my body, and it's being run off of a machine to keep the blood pumping through so I don't have any brain damage or anything like that. And then they put the new heart in, and they have to attach every single one of those arteries and do it the right way. And, the big fear is the fit, the big fear is the rejection, and the possibility of infection. Well, my doctor came in when I was finally coherent enough to understand, and said, "I don't know how to explain this." He said, "But you're amazing. You're good." He said, "Whatever prayers you're saying, keep saying them." And at this stage, I had realized and had been the beneficiary of so many, and this church being one of the biggest ones, so many prayer groups that were out there, that I felt so, as much despair as I was facing, as much personal, and I'm a stubborn mule, and I don't typically seek for help from others, so this was a new world for me. But I'll tell you, there's nothing like giving yourself to the faith of God. And I hate to say it took this situation for me to really realize it, but I did. I embraced it as much as possible. We read prayers every night.
We recorded, I selfishly wanted to have Justin's voice reading to me every night before we went to bed was Jesus calling. And it was a short prayer, and it was a synopsis of your day. And let me tell you how many times that lined up for what we were going through.
It's a book called The Jesus Calling.
Or what we were going through the next day.
So,
and what we needed for that moment just to get us through that day. And just give us that little bit to get us through just to the very next day. You can't look at the big picture. If we'd known what we were going to go through at each phase, we wouldn't have made it. And I say we because we were together the whole time. And I wasn't physically the one laying in the bed, but I wanted him with me. I didn't want to leave him there. I was selfish. I wanted him to come home and come home to our family and our life again. I couldn't give up. And he didn't give up. What he went through was beyond torture. What you see in movies it was physically grueling, emotionally grueling, and he has the endurance of like an army in 1 minute.
Pastor Al, to give you an idea, I was walking around for 2 months with a blood pressure of 83/36. Think
No
about
blood.
that.
pumping, like sludge.
83 over 36. And it came to a point where the doctors, when I first fell into that category of illness, the doctors were freaking out like I was going to die any second. And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm okay. Like, they're like, are you dizzy? Are you like, can you? And I was fine. Somehow I was fine. I can't explain it, but for your blood pressure to go that low, and then when I was sleeping, it would go even lower than that. It touched 79 and over the 20s at one point. And they're like, you shouldn't be alive. And I knew that it was, first and foremost, I would not be here with a microphone in my hand today if it wasn't for her. She carried me through everything. I mean, and what I would say to anybody who's going through a situation like that of despair, and there's so many different details I can go to, and I would love to talk to anybody that needs to hear the actual process of going through what I went through, in depth, is, you have to maintain a focus and a drive on something. And you have to, I'm a coach, mentor, and public speaker by trade. That's what I do for a living. And I always teach people, do the hardest things first. Have the buffalo mentality. Buffaloes on the plains, when a storm is coming through, they don't run away from it, they run at it. Because they know getting out of it the other side will be quicker to sunshine than running with it and having it follow you. Okay? And that was the mindset that I took on, and she pushed me. There were times, I'd be lying if I said there weren't times I wanted to give up or felt like I was going to give up. I couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. Just to not be able to shower, to have your own food, to have any freedom at all in life. Again, that was my reference to prison before. I couldn't brush my teeth for months. I wasn't allowed, because if I did, my gums would bleed so catastrophically I would lose blood. My whole mouth would fill with blood just by brushing my teeth, my gums, because of all the blood thinners and because of my liver. You learn real quick that your liver is the most important organ in your body, next to your heart. And here I am having to have both taken out and replaced, because your liver controls everything: your skin condition, your blood, your filtering of your blood, so many different things. And to not have someone to, when you're down, that you can lean on, is, I just can't even imagine where I would be if I didn't have her, because there were many times where she pushed me. So I was very thankful for the circle of my life and the nothing short of a miracle blessing that Erin came into my life when she did, how she did, in her position. Because she would do just the little things, like she would bring me blankets from home that I would use, not the hospital blankets. Now, you might hear that and be like, well, what does that mean? It's huge, because that feeling of home, smelling the laundry detergent that I'm used to at home, instead of the abrasive, paper-thin blankets that they give you in the hospital. If I didn't have that warmth, if I didn't have that reminder of what I'm fighting for, then I don't know how much more I would have been able to take or handle it. So little things like that she would do all the time. Bringing me, my favorite T-shirts and my clothes and food, and just being there and having the prayer sessions with me, and she would get information. Now, mind you, I have two friends that are doctors, and they're telling her on the side, Erin, I hate to tell you this, but they're preparing him to die. This is previous, to the surgery, because they knew the medications that were being given to me. My one friend's an ER surgeon down in Maryland for 25 years, and he told her, and he told me after the fact, he said, Just, I don't know how you're here. He said 99.9% of the public would not have survived what you went through. And he said, based on what they were giving you medicine-wise, they were preparing you for death. Like they were just making you comfortable. There was nothing being done to save you. And that's like, I look back on it, I never had that thought in my head. I always knew that if you give me something to fight, I'm going to fight it. I'm going to go down in a blaze of glory. I would never let the illness and the despair to completely get on top of me. And that was with the help of her, my friends, and all those that were praying for me. Social media became a very powerful source for me, because there was a lot of people. At one point, I had somebody who took a pilgrimage to Italy and put me in a prayer group in an Italian church in the countryside, like really powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had people from my elementary school from all over the place praying, and I could feel that. I could feel, it's hard to put into words, but I could feel the groundswell of something that was fortifying and standing me up, keeping me upright. And then at one point, finally, all of the negatives, because every test that came back, I got bad news all the time for a year. Like every time they wanted, we're going to test you for this, and it was bad. It was negative. It was, a dire set of circumstances. Well, finally, things started to change. And then I went through the surgery, and next thing I knew, it was just one success after another, walking, within hours of my ventilator being taken out. And then you have two choices. You can lay there and be that person who's sick and just had surgery and take all the pain meds and let everybody do everything for you, or you can get your butt up and do it yourself. And as much as I didn't want to, that's where I had the Buffalo mentality, do the hard things first. So if I got up in the morning and I didn't want to do my walking exercises because I was in pain, and the nurses are all too quick to say, don't worry about it, we completely understand. I said, no, I'm doing it. Get me up, get me walking, no matter how much it hurt. Pain became my friend. Pain became my ally throughout the entire process, because it was the reminder that as long as I was feeling pain, I was still alive. And to manage that pain from a psychological standpoint, it was far easier for me to utilize it as a fuel to push it, because I knew I was in a place physically that if things got worse or bad, that they would be able to help me or save me. But I was also in a place where I was protected by the Lord and was in his hands. And I had full faith at this point, after surviving so many different situations over the span of a year, that I knew that he had intentions for me.
Yes.
There's no doubt in my mind. And I just, being able to have a microphone in my hand and being able to speak to hundreds of people as my career coming up to that point, I look forward to being able to share my story and help other people in this aspect, because there is definitely a true reality to the mindset end of this. And it's all about mindset, and it's what you think about and what you believe in. And it can't be blind faith. It can't be empty. It's got to be a full commitment to the Word of God and to the disciplines that are required to get you out of the situation. Anybody can accomplish anything at all. They just have to have the mental fortitude to actually do it and go through it, and that's the hardest part sometimes.
Yeah. And help.
Oh, well, that's right. What I was going to say. Me being the stubborn mule that I was, I never allowed people to help me. I always wanted to be independent. So this was as I call it, this is the ultimate factory data reset button of my life. Yeah. Because prior to this, because I've realized a measure of success in a lot of things that I've done in my life, whether it be baseball or real estate. I did very well for myself, having never been in it, made top 1% realtors in the state, so on and so forth. So I was always very self-sufficient and kind of trained myself that way. But when you're in this situation, you gotta be open and realize that, sometimes you can't do it all by yourself. And the amount of knowledge that you gain and the perspective that you gain through the help of others opens your eyes to a whole new world of possibilities.
Yes.
And, it's not a dependency, it's an appreciation, and it's almost an earning, because the amount of people that I had there for me was a reflection of the amount of people that I had helped prior. Because a lot of them were people that I coached and mentored, and it was overwhelming. And being that my mother was now in a nursing home with Alzheimer's and my father had passed away in 2016, I didn't have any family. So her father and her mother became my father and mother, and it was just at the perfect timing. And they really got me through a lot. Her dad would come and visit me in the hospital and, give me words of encouragement and bust my chops too at times. What are you doing here? Get the heck up out of that bed and let's go. Kind of stuff. But it was terrifying. And the way that we met and the way that things progressed, looking back on it now as I'm able to pause and reflect, and keep in mind, we're sitting here at the early stages of December, and I'm not considered a successful transplant until 1 year out.
Oh,
Because death is knocking on my door every day. I can't catch a cam. So right now I have to look at it in phases. I'm not able to drive around myself until January 13th. That's because of the sternal surgery, and I can't be behind a airbag or have a seatbelt on. So I'm driving Miss Daisy now. I'm in the back seat while she's driving me around.
Yeah.
So, and it's flu season.
Yeah.
So if I were to get the flu, now this is what they're telling me coming up to the process. Now here's where another miracle comes into play. The medication that they're giving me, you're supposed to have anywhere from a 280 to 550 plus immune response in your cells. The medication that they gave me, or are giving me, that I take every day, I take 26 pills in the morning, 11 in the afternoon, and 24 at night, every day, on top of having to take my blood sugar 4 times a day and insulin before every meal because of the steroids that I'm on. So it's flu season that I have to get through, and then after that, when the spring hits, I have to be extremely careful and wary of skin cancer. Because of the weakened immune system and how strong the sun is nowadays, I'm very prone to skin cancer. Unfortunately, it runs in my family. Fortunately, nobody's ever passed from it, but my father had skin cancer on his head. My mother had skin cancer on her leg. So it's something that happens in my family, and I got to be very, very careful of that. Sunscreen, hats, exposure altogether. But and it's after the first year, then it's deemed a success.
Wow.
But right now,
that's amazing.
To give you an example, my first week home from the hospital, the physical therapy guy came to the house, and he's looking at me, and he's looking at the paper, and he's looking at me, and he's looking at the paper, and he's like, I have to call my boss. I'm like, doesn't add up, right? And he's like, you just had a heart transplant 2 weeks ago? I was like, and liver. He's like, and he's looking at me, because I'm walking around, I'm fine. And he's like, I'm not even supposed to have you get out of bed until 8 weeks after your surgery. He's like, I'm supposed to teach you how to get dressed and this and that. And I had just cooked breakfast for my family. I'm dressed, I'm showered. So, the feeling of the Lord and his protection and his Savior and me giving myself to that has been prevalent all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it has to be a complete surrender to the Word of God.
Amen.
And, just reading passage after passage. And how ironic was it? Every passage for the Jesus Calling book, is by date.
Yeah.
And every day there's new prayer. And how crazy was it, how much it lined up with what was going on with me every day.
Time.
Every day. We would read it.
You knew it was the Lord.
It was.
Oh, my
You knew
God.
that- you knew that God was just speaking to you.
Yeah.
So, Erin,
Yeah.
how are you still standing? How are you still sane?
I don't know. He asked me, how did you do it? How did you handle it? Because, he didn't see the side of it from my side.
Yes.
He was in the operating room, and I was really worried. I mean, he'll tell you, I try not to worry, but I overthink everything, and I'm like 10 steps ahead thinking of all the what-ifs. They're telling me I have no room to go to, because where am I going to stay while he's in a 20-hour surgery? I'm like, well, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving until they tell me he's okay. And, we're 2 hours in a car ride, and it's in the city. And parking is $108 a day if you find a good spot. If not, it's more. So these are all irrelevant, but they're all factors. And I'm like, well, I'll just go sleep in my car. I'll get a blanket and pillow, and I'll wait by my phone. So 3 doctors that we had never met before and nurses come wheeling him out to surgery. Now, that was in itself a huge monumental moment where he's getting wheeled into the operating room for the fight of his life by strangers that don't know him, they don't know me. And they come up to me after and they're like, hey, take Justin's room. You can stay there. All your stuff is there, all his stuff is there. Well, it's a pretty big room, and I don't know how we slipped this part past, but like we were in the armpit of hell rooms before this, and we get
At the
to
other hospital.
NYU, and that place will have a place in my heart forever. But they gave us the treatment of royalty. That's where God's hand is on it. He'll give you back 7 times what you lost, what the enemy tried to steal from you. They wheeled us into the 15th floor, room 1 in the ICU. And let me tell you, when those doors, glass doors opened and Justin's room was a picture window, floor to ceiling, of the Empire State Building at eye level, at the tippy top, the steeple, or whatever, is that what it's called?
I was on the
tippy
15th
top,
floor on 34th Street.
like on 30 Miracle, we had our Miracle on 34th Street. Because out his window where he laid in bed and looked to the left is the Empire State Building. And that was
Chrysler
spiritual for
Building.
me.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I sat there in that room while he's on 20 hours wheeled in, and there's my other half getting wheeled and torn apart. And I was stripped down to bare, pure faith and saying, God, it's in your hands. I sat in that room in emptiness. My husband's gone. Every nurse familiar to me, they weren't checking on us anymore because the patient wasn't there. And I was just in this empty room glowing with the Empire State Building looking in at me going, we got this. And my faith was right there. Like I had to either say, I quit or I don't quit, and I'm not giving up, and God's not giving up, and he didn't bring us through 2 years of absolute hell and torture to just leave us like this. And Justin was okay. He kept me calm. And he might have been freaking out, but I didn't let him see how freaked out I was. I was like, you're going to be fine. Everything's fine. I was terrified, but I wasn't in that moment. I was like almost numb. Like I was being held up by strength I didn't have of my own. I wasn't crying. I wasn't freaking out. I was at peace for the first time. It was like all of everything, all the outside noise was quiet. And I was sitting in an empty room and it was like I don't know if you've ever been in a room where you live with someone else and their stuff is their essence. I could still smell his cologne. His shoes were there, his sweatshirts, but he was gone. But I still felt like he was there. And I'm like, I'm not giving up. I'm going to sit awake. And he knows I'm a tired girl. I stayed awake the whole time. 7 a.m., I get the phone call from his top surgeon, called me personally. Not his assistant, not his nurse, not some tech, him on the phone. And I was down at reception renewing my parking voucher. And he said, he did better than great. He's fine. His heart's pumping. I fell to my knees. I felt like the blood rush out of my body. And he's like, he's great. Handing him over to liver right now. He's doing fine. He's not on a ventilator. He's not on a bypass machine. His heart's pumping. And that was it. And I was like, okay, he did it. Like, God is so good.
Well, that was just the hard part.
And the hard part was he had to have his new heart take to do the liver. The liver seemed like nothing at this point.
Yeah.
And that was in a miracle in of itself. The heart took first try. They unplugged everything and heart was pumping on his own. He was breathing without the ventilator. He didn't need it. They kept it on it because of the amount of time he was under sedation. So then liver takes over. Supposed to take, 8 to 12 hours for the liver. 3 hours later, Justin is cleared from surgery. I'm getting these little updates on my phone. The liver doctor comes in and goes, he's good. He's fine. I'm like, what do you mean? No, he's good. He's stopped talking. He's okay. He's going to be just fine. And I'm like, they prepare you for the worst.
Yes.
They expected the worst.
He was still sedated because his body needed time to not go into shock. So for the next whole entire day, he doesn't remember this. They had to give him the jumper cables. I mean, his body was arcing off the table.
They had to paddle me 3 times.
But not because his heart wasn't beating.
It was beating too fast.
The electrodes in his heart weren't in sync yet. But that was the only hiccup he had.
To get me
from
in
now,
the sinus rhythm, what they call sinus rhythm.
Till right now, everything has been leaps and bounds what they said it was going to be, and he's totally fine. His numbers, his lab work.
Tell him what you said.
His liver's perfect.
Tell him what I said.
It's not only like and I said to him, "You're not sick anymore." And he's like, "Yes, I'm like, "No, you're healing. You are in recovery and you're recovering from surgery, but your numbers are in the green, healthier than a normal healthy person. His heart is in the 100% percentile, and so is his liver. He has no more bilirubin in his body. No, all his levels are green. We haven't seen green yet. And when you get your LabCorp reports, you're like, oh, a little red, a little orange. His are down the board, 60 lab vials, green. Like God's hands on this man.
Yes, he is.
That was the personal relationship I had with God leading up to this. Was I just kept praying for him to guide me, just guide me and then guide the hands of those who are working on me. That was the one thing that I repeatedly prayed for, and that's why every time I was told that I wasn't going to make it, something popped up with another opportunity. So that was, in my mind, that was God illuminating the path to be in the right place.
Absolutely.
And then when I got to that hospital, like she's saying, floor-to-ceiling windows looking over the city, I felt like I was in the right spot. And I felt like I was in the Ritz-Carlton of hospitals, to be honest with you. 85-inch TV, my own room, by myself, no guy next to me throwing up all night and making weird noises. It was...
25,000.
I knew, I could feel that was where I was going to battle to win this.
Yeah.
That was my showdown. That was my showdown with the devil, and I knew I wasn't going to lose.
Praise God.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That is, I have to share with you that you have one of the most powerful stories that I've ever heard, whether in person or on TV or anything. It's like an amazing story, and there's so much to draw from it for so many different people, right? People who,
for sure.
people who are without hope, or feel like they're losing hope. People who are sick. People who are struggling with their faith. I mean, there's so many great applications here, So let's just pray.
Yeah.
We'll have a word of prayer now that God uses this. He's already using you, but he's going to use you even in a greater way. I love what you said, Erin, that that God has, and you said this too, that you got to know that God has you here for something big, for big plans.
No doubt.
And, to pay it forward and just to let the reality of what you've been through, right? So many of us, especially in church people, we talk a good game, right? Like we know the insider language to use. We know all the code words and everything. But how many of us have been through the fire? I mean, you guys have been through the fire.
Oh, yeah.
And survived it and come back out, right?
Yeah.
So God's got to have a special purpose. There's no
Absolutely.
doubt about that.
I was definitely in the fire.
Let's pray. Father, I just thank you so much for this beautiful couple, Lord. And I thank you for the miracle that you've done in Justin's body, but also in his mind and in his spirit. I thank you for his partner, his lover, his friend, best friend, Erin, and for her strength. And Lord, I just know, Lord, that you have done a mighty work in them, and you're now going to do a mighty work through them in the weeks and months and years and decades to come, Lord. I pray that you would just bless them with both really, really good health moving forward. Lord, that they would look back upon this past year in years and even decades to come as they grow old together, Lord, that they would look back upon this and can clearly see your hand at work. Lord, would you take this video now that Ben has made and Ben is going to be editing and just piece it together just right, that this may bring hope and help and encouragement to many, many people on different levels. People young and old, people who know them and perfect strangers, Lord. Lord, you can use this in a mighty way. We look forward to what you're going to do because we look forward in faith, and we are going to trust you, Lord. We're going to give ourselves to you and trust you for all things. And again, Lord, we're just so thankful today. We're so thankful for the miracle that you've done. What a great, great Christmas gift this is. We ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.